申し訳ないんですけど、もう始まってるんですけども。
いや、ですからね、僕一人じゃどうも不安なんで、応援を一人呼ぼうと思うんですよ。
In modern day entertainment, you can find 30-minute comic shorts of a TV series or maybe even your children's average cartoon.
開かれました。うさぎチームとたぬきチームの試合は今のところ5対4でたぬきチーム優勢であります。
Comedy, romance, action, thriller, horror, whatever the preference is, daily entertainment is brought to the viewer by a remote and a TV. But have you ever wondered what another culture's entertainment looked like?
It may sound strange, but it is Chaplin I have in mind when I make animated films. I don't mean to refer to Chaplin's humor and gags, but to his experimental element and popularity that makes people in the world feel happy. And I think animation is the same thing.
Osamu Tezuka's influence on animation has played a very important part in the creation of anime and manga, helped form the culture of Japan, and has made Japan one of the world's most interesting countries to this day. Anime and manga is short for Japanese animation. The term anime literally means Japanese cartoons, and manga means Japanese comics. The word manga was first used in 1798 when it was used to describe a Japanese picture book, Shiji no Yukika. The word was used again later in 1814 when an early drawing studio uses manga to describe one of their books, Hakusei manga. However, anime and manga began to slowly gain popularity around the 19th century when small comic strips started to appear in Japanese newspapers. After this took effect in late 20s, early 30s, the Japanese government started to change and intimidate publishers and artists. Despite an overflow of anime and manga, most of them were too graphic for magazines and newspapers to publish. Many of these magazine companies had to censor or cut off their work completely, and if they didn't comply, both the publishers and the artists were to be arrested. Since the arrest of companies and artists was becoming more and more common, magazines started to need a jail editor, who would give themselves to the police and save the rest of the company from punishment. These comic strips mainly revolved around Japan's enemies, propaganda, and family and home life when World War II came in 1939. When big companies started to diminish, smaller companies took the opportunity to seize control over the anime and manga business.
He's a bit the godfather of all the mangas being those Japanese cartoons. What is so special about him is that he's someone who created a million characters that all were parts, I think, of his own personality. It was someone who had a lot of empathy, who could put himself in many people's bodies in a way. He could relate to a lot of people, and he wrote about characters that were so diverse and so human in the way they behaved, in the way they thought about things, and the conflicts or the situations these characters were in were always something you could relate to.
These small companies started publishing cheap books called Red Books, but what made one man start out small made him possibly the biggest legend in Japanese animation in history. Osamu Tezuka, or otherwise referred to as the Godfather of anime and manga, had gotten his start after releasing his first Red Book in 1947 called Shintaka Ramajima, or in English translation, New Treasure Island. Tezuka was born in 1928 and grew up in Takaruzuka. Osamu's childhood growing up played a very important part in his career choice as an adult. When he was young, he had always loved to draw in his free time. He was always small, which led to bullying during his younger ages. Sometimes he would leave school crying. When he would come home from school, his mother would tell him the most fascinating stories. Before he knew it, he became absorbed in a found love for storytelling. Later, his father had bought the family a small film projector so they could hold cartoon film festivals, just for the family. His father would buy comics and let Osamu read them whenever he pleased. This had inspired Tezuka to create his own comics and sometimes had competitions with his sister to see who would draw better. Later in his school years, after the children and teachers had discovered Osamu's affinity for comics and art, his classmates no longer made fun of him and he was able to make friends.
Once animation used to be too experimental and self-satisfied. But it is my desire to make animated films regarded by the audience as universal language.
After being able to overcome his shyness, he adopted the love for science, learning that his favorite insect was the osamushi. Since the insect's name was similar to his own name, he decided to use the pen name Tezuka Osamu when he started drawing his illustrations in comics.
今度はお二人で手作りの冊子を作りになったって聞きましたけれども。
もう中にね、非常にその絵物語あり、漫画あり、小説あり、担保記事あり、読者欄あり、広告あり、事後予告あり。
When World War II broke out, he received training to become a soldier for the Japanese army and worked in a factory. Throughout the war, he still continued to draw, inspired by the effects around him, and even after he was punished severely for his actions, his teacher, for thinking he was acting rash against the Japanese nation, punished him. His arm swelled up and he fell very ill. He recovered a few days later, fascinated by the doctor's work, and studied to become a doctor. However, throughout his work, he still had a passion for art. It wasn't until he reached the age of 17 when his work started to be published, first being published in a children's newspaper, and officially went on to creating his first popular manga, New Treasure Island. He was torn between the two divisions of either becoming a doctor or a full-time manga artist. After a long period of thinking, he decided to become a manga artist and do what he loved.
いやね、僕は実はその時漫画描いてたんですよ。でこれをパッと私のですって見せられた時にね、もう内心ドキドキしたんですけど、うまいじゃないかって適当に言っといたんだけど、いやもう内心すごい人が来たと思いましてね。
It wasn't easy though. He moved to Tokyo because of the amount of publishing houses, but was turned down by all of them. The children in Tokyo awaited his new manga books and strips. He was finally commissioned for a magazine called Manga Shonen. After he had published his work in this magazine, orders for work were overflowing him. But one of the most famous requests that still lives on to this day happened to be one little boy named Atom, a robot who had a heart and mind like a human. Tezuka soon became Japan's #1 manga artist. From all the publicity, he was inspired by American cartoons, primarily from the company Disney, and had worked on Japan's first ever animation TV show, Tetsuo and Atom in Japanese and Astro Boy in English. Not only had it grown in popularity in Japan, but it had become very popular in the United States as well. His lifelong work not only made him a legend, but he had written over 170,000 pages and created more than 700 stories for the world to be inspired.
もうひどくこうリアルなんですよ。こういうシワ入れてみたり。
After Osamu Tezuka's death on February 9, 1989, Japan was distraught. For weeks they mourned him, but his death was only the beginning of something new. Soon after, many small businesses and artists leaped at the chance to become the next big hit. Anime and manga was pouring in from all over. This was also an opportunity for marketers and big brand companies to use this to their advantage. His legacy still lives on to this day, touching the lives of modern artists worldwide. He created an industry resulting in millions of dollars of income and formed a unified culture that is priceless. He inspired some of the entertainment's biggest franchises, revolving around Sword Art Online, Death Note, Attack on Titan, Dragon Ball Z, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Naruto, Full Metal Alchemist, Soul Eater, Pokemon, and many more. Osamu Tezuka contributed to the popularity of anime and manga, influenced the culture of Japan, and helped make Japan one of the most fascinating societies in the world.